Issue 236. We start out with some brief recap about the Dracon Empire and Mobius before Sonic goes through the Mobius Ring on Flicky's Island to get to the Dracon homeworld to get their help. To his surprise, one of the Dracon wants his autograph. And some Dracons are excited to see him. That made me smile, that was pretty heartwarming and a fresh change of pace. One of them, calling Sonic Defendant, says he's a journalist who sympathizes with Sonic. Sonic says he doesn't have time for this instead of appreciating this. You know, he really should appreciate this. And he has to be taken to the Emperor right away. He is in a rush, so it makes sense that he wouldn't explain himself. He's told that the Emperor was deposed years ago and replaced. A Sentinel shows up, and when Sonic's told that it'll just leave him to rot for a few years instead of taking him to the Emperor, reminding us of how ridiculously slow the legal system is to prosecute in the Dracon Empire, he takes off. He lets himself get captured to be taken to the Emperor. Well, he was just told that this wouldn't be the thing that would happen for him. And Sister Hagra says that Sonic's part of a prophecy where he'll lead the Dracons to the Emeralds. Sonic explains to them what's going on and says he needs to know how they control Chaos Energy to save his world. Also, I'm pretty sure that prophecy is never going to come true. So, it's weird that they would have a prophecy that doesn't come true. That's a refreshing change of pace. Sonic has to actually tell him that, yes, if Mobius is destroyed, they'll never get the Emeralds back. Some house of knowledge. The Emperor tells a reluctant Hagra to give him a Chaos Tap, which will absorb and store excess Chaos Energy on the planet to prevent it from becoming a danger. Sonic briefly shows suspicion over whether the device will work, and then is told to use a Draxon sword, which I misread as Demon Sword, to open a portal to Mobius. He thanks them awkwardly, and Hagra hopes the Emperor's plan will work, because of course he has to have an ulterior motive. The Emperor explains that whenever they want, they can deactivate the Chaos Tap to destroy Mobius, so they can use that against them. The Emperor also says that once they find the Emerald Mine, they can create thousands of Chaos Emeralds and rule the universe for all time. You know, maybe Sonic should have stayed in here. Well, I mean stay in here after he saved Mobius, obviously. I think he would have been better off doing that. It turns out they're able to contact Agent Rouge whenever they want. The Emperor tells someone to tell Rouge to continue watching Zachary, but still pull out of her operation. So she was just spying on Zachary? That'd be more in character for her as a spy from SC2. The Emperor says that he needed a spy to collect info to prevent another travesty after the former Emperor's failed attack. I didn't think the Chaos Tap being deactivated would destroy Mobius. I thought it would just make it stop doing something it was already done with after it had saved Mobius. Because it would absorb the Chaos Energy, and there, it's absorbed the Chaos Energy, it's finished. Why would deactivating it after it's done that cause a problem? In the next story, a text box says that the Goblins' train route to Tails' homeland is operational. And the text box literally calls Marine's plan desperate and dangerous, as we see some foxes riding a flying animal. Then Earl lampshades that Marine's endangering innocent lives with her plan, and Marine reveals that their children are bullied in the streets, out of nowhere, and we'll never see that. The villages have new goblin industries that supposedly scar them with pollution? Okay, make them more environmentally friendly. That still creates jobs and produces helpful things. That's no reason to vilify the goblins. That can be solved. And she complains about their crops being taken over by goblin workers. Again, they're stealing our jobs! So are the goblin workers cheaper to hire? Or are they more plentiful? Because I don't see why they would hire them over the people native to the kingdom. You'd think if anything the goblin workers would be discriminated against in their kingdom and not get the jobs as easily. I don't know. Then she complains about the degrading ceremony every year to show loyalty to the goblins. Yeah, I get her hating that. But it's not slavery if they're still being paid. Tails has me proud of him for calling her out. So this is your solution? A big bag of dynamite? Moraine, seeming to have the typical villain argument that goodness is weakness, calls Tails a coward for not wanting to blow up innocent people, and I'm reminded of the other M-Band comic as Tails calls out, We fought to protect innocent citizens, not destroy them. Moraine insists that the goblins deserve to die because they chose to invade. Well, I can understand where she come from with that, but it's not like literally every goblin ever is evil, is the bad guy, just the ones who are invading. The soldiers. And even then, they're just following orders. She has a very simplistic black and white morality. I mean, is she a teenager? But even teenagers are more mature in morality than that. And the goblin commander decides to arrest her, naturally, and put her on a fast track to death row for terrorist acts. As Tails covers his eyes, Moraine says that if that's Errol's decision, he can die with the goblins. Considering she's always been shown as pretty mean and rude, even enjoying being incredibly violent, the last story we saw her, it makes sense that she'd be portrayed as a villain here. It's over the top by this point, though, but it felt like it was foreshadowed well in, like, the last story. I like the misguided hero aspect being made more obviously intentional. And I love the idea of a brother-sister fight and rivalry. Well, kind of. It's more tragic than anything. Like, she used to be very much like, oh no, you transformed my brother. Well, how dare you mistreat my brother? And now she's the exact opposite. She jumps through a window, which logically should hurt her from the shards of glass. That's the weakest glass ever. Tails says in a panic that the explosives caught fire, and if the train is derailed over the vortex between zones, he'll fall out of existence with everyone else in it. Tails throws the dynamites away, sees Moraine on a flying thing with the rest of her resistance, and Tails insults Errol for helping enslave the Nameless Zone. He's not really on anybody's side. Which makes sense, no side is 100% right, which is actually pretty mature writing for a Sonic comic. One of the Enchanter Kings tells Tails that they could have never fought the goblins off in outright war, and another Enchanter King points out that at least this way they can negotiate for a better deal, as well as roads, technology, and medicine. It's a very pragmatic and rational way of looking at it. I'm proud of this comic. Though, the Enchanter Kings, like, they're called the Enchanter Kings, and yet the only magical thing we've ever seen them do is summoning a portal to get Tails to the zone. Is that really all they can do? I mean, if that's the case, then I guess that would explain why they think they can't win against the goblins. The story ends with Tails coming home and wondering which side he should even take when he'll come back here. If I was him, I wouldn't even come back here at all. You can't really pick a good side in this situation. I wonder if the last time we were in the Nameless Zone they were planning to have it turn out this way, like the original writers. Or if it was just going to portray the goblins as purely evil instead of being more morally gray like here. Errol even lampshades that it's not easy to stomach. So it's not like things are portrayed as completely perfect either. The problem, like, we don't ever actually see the actual civilians side of things, aside from one goblin. Just the Resistance and Errol. In the next story, we see a bank being robbed by a shadowy figure, and it flies towards a civilian to kidnap her. From the fat silhouette and glowing red eyes, I guessed that this was Vermin. A text box says that when the sun rises, everything returns to normal. And we see Sharpfuse without his armor saying it was quite a night. Did he get his armor stolen? Sharpfuse says he was busy last night because so many bad things happened, and Techno says amusingly that she's waiting for the phone to ring so it'll start making popcorn. That's an experimenter for you. Then we see Techno being called, told by the police that there's camera footage of a shadowed Sharpfuse robbing a bank. You know, why don't the heroes just officially get police badges at this point? Because that's basically what they do. They work with the police to solve crime cases. So I guess they would be less appealing if they were literally wearing... I'm not asking for them to be literally wearing police uniforms. That would be completely ridiculous. But, I don't know. Maybe it would hurt their appeal factor if they were literally called part of the cops. But still, that's literally what they're doing. It's really nice of the police to allow them to do this instead of dismissing them as vigilantes. After Techno puts her lab into lockdown just in case, while in denial about the idea of Sharpfuse being guilty, she throws a photo of her and him to the floor and decides to try to prove the tape wrong. Wait, so first she does that and then she decides to try to prove the tape wrong? She's really conflicted. The story ends with Sharpfuse learning about what he's being accused of. This issue is by Ed Reynolds. The first story has Sonic go to the Dracon Empire through a Mobius ring that was left on Flicky's Island to get a Chaos Tap to counter the world-destroying Chaos Siphon. And it turns out the Emperor can deactivate it at any time, so he'll be able to use that to threaten the world later. So why doesn't he do that, like, immediately? Also, threatening the world like that, he'd also have to have a message broadcasted from the Chaos Tap to actually tell people that, hey, I'm bargaining you, so I'll destroy the world if you don't do this. Because if you can't do that, then what would be the point of being able to threaten the world if you can't verbally threaten them? I had a little hope when I learned that the previous Emperor was deposed. I thought it would be like another Goblin Kingdom situation. But nope, he's a bad guy too. Sonic really should have done something about this guy. Though, how is he supposed to know? But I mean, like, after he saved Mobius. Speaking of hope, though, I was pretty proud of the second story. They make it clear that Moraine is going too far. The only real problem she mentions is kids getting bullied in the streets, which comes out of nowhere, makes no sense, and is never elaborated on. Otherwise, she's just complaining about typical no-shit expected problems from her country being taken over by another. It's not exactly the end of the world. Oh, well, I do hate the ceremony. That's really dumb, but you'd think it would have been cancelled by now. Like, what's the point of having an entire ceremony to promise that they'll obey the Goblin Empire? Like, is it once enough? Why do they have to have a whole ceremony? Can't it just be like a private thing between leaders? Moraine crosses the World Event Horizon by trying to kill her brother with everyone else, and Tails throws the dynamite out of the train so it won't send him and Errol to the void of non-existence. Again, Moraine was very hateful, like in the last story that she was in, so it's not like it's a complete exaggeration of her character. I feel like it was kind of led naturally into. The story ends with the Enchanter Kings re-explaining to Tails that they're benefiting from the Goblin Kingdom truce by negotiating for better technology. And Errol says it's not easy to stomach, so it's not fully a good thing either, but it's the best solution they have to avoid a war. It's a very mature way of looking at a country getting taken over by another one. Usually, fantasy universes and the media just portray it as completely 100% evil. But, like, obviously, like, the Enchanter King's kingdom is not very technologically advanced, so they're gonna benefit from getting taken over by industrialists. That's not Robotnik, so it's not like it's all bad. And I'm proud of the Sonic comic for having it like that. I bet the previous writer would have just had the Goblin Kingdom be pure evil and Moraine be right. And the final story has Short Fuse appear to be framed for robberies at night. And I can only assume that Vermin got a new suit that looks just like Short Fuse's.